What up, Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. On this show, we talk about crowdfunding and really try to get to the crux of how to actually run a crowdfunding campaign. What are the things you need to do to be successful in order to raise capital using equity crowdfunding, in order to get pre-orders doing Kickstarter or Indiegogo, get a product made, and really raise money for your passion. So we talk about a lot of different platforms on this podcast, whether that's Patreon or nonprofit crowdfunding campaigns. And really, at the end of the day, to me, this is about demystifying a process that is not understood by very many people. And to me, that's kind of why I got passionate about this in 2015. I actually launched this podcast. I think there's also like the kernel that really started the fire for me, that kindled the fire back in 2012 when I started my blog, crowdcrux.com. And to me, it's just something that there is not enough good quality education out there, not only demystifying the process, but also showing how other people are taking action every single week and seeing results. When you're trying to prepare for an upcoming campaign, to be able to get access to the teachings, the lessons, the tips. For example, in today's podcast episode, discovering how today's creator and entrepreneur was able to do a successful WeFunder campaign, raise over $500,000 using regulation crowdfunding. Man, no one else is bringing the goods to you the way that I do. I love to bring these nuggets of gold to you so that way you can go out there and actually raise funds successfully. And you can do this with a crowdfunding campaign. So specifically today, we are talking about equity crowdfunding. And for those that are interested, that is for a startup company, that's for a new business of some kind. You're basically raising capital from the crowd, and people who join your campaign are investors in your company. So you give away a small percentage of equity, and you're able to raise a boatload of capital. And for example, with today's podcast guests, being able to raise upwards of $500,000 for their actual tool. And ironically enough, we also use this tool here at CrowdCrux when it comes to managing our podcast. So really cool to be able to interview some other people in the community. And I kind of view that as well as my duty. That's something that I really hold myself to a high regard of when it comes to trying to bring on good guests for you guys so you can learn from them. And one of the things that I pride myself in as well is putting you on the fast track when it comes to launching a new campaign. And that's exactly why today I actually wanted to share with you a free course that goes step by step through how to do an equity crowdfunding campaign. So if you want to raise capital using WeFunder, Start Engine, Seed Invest, you want to be able to really knock it out of the park with an equity crowdfunding campaign, I'm going to share with you the cutting edge techniques and tactics that are working today in order to amass a huge following of investors, of evangelists, and people that are spreading the word about your campaign. So if that sounds interesting, go and check out this free course that I put together that will share with you this step-by-step in a very easy to understand, digestible framework. Go and check this out at crowdcrux.com/equity course. That link is crowdcrux.com/equity course. Again, that link is crowdcrux.com/equity course. And that link will take you there. Just enter your name and email. Start to get some emails from me, and maybe I'll even invite you into my Facebook group, which I'm starting as well for other people out there that are doing these campaigns. So thank you so much for listening to this show. I hope you've been enjoying it. If you have, give me a positive rating and review. But other than that, let's get straight into this podcast episode and discover how this creator was able to raise $500,000 on WeFunder and exactly how they did it. And it's coming up right after this. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we are speaking with the creator of Zencastr. This campaign has already raised over $500K on WeFunder for more than 800 investors, and we are lucky enough to speak with Josh, the founder and CEO today. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Salvador, thank you for having me.
Definitely, man. Maybe you can fill in some gaps in that intro, and you can let some of the listeners know about what Zencastr is and what you're running a campaign for.
Yeah, Zencastr, we're all about podcasters. We want to make or help podcasters, realize their goals, which is to, create a podcast, obviously, but then to follow on to grow your audience and actually make money doing it. Most podcasters are entrepreneurial. We want to be here to be your team, be your network, to make it so that you can have a chance of breakout success as a podcaster without having to build a team or join a network. We want to be there to make it so just your talent is what you need, and we handle all the rest.
And from what I understand, you've also been doing a campaign here on WeFunder. How did you come across WeFunder as a platform, out of curiosity?
Yeah, Man, I think it was just sort of one of the better known platforms out there when we started searching. I don't quote me on this, but I think they kind of had the longer history in the market compared to most of the other options. And we had gotten in contact with some people that had used it before, had good experiences, and we have a consultant who we're working with on the crowdfund, and he recommended the platform as well. So that's where we landed, and we've been pretty happy.
So in terms of doing a raise, what made you decide to go the equity crowdfunding route instead of maybe doing more of a traditional raise with the company?
Yeah, great question. We are actually in the process right now of, sort of a longer process of transitioning the company from being where we used to be, which is sort of a remote recording platform, to now being a network that connects creators together, has a community, helps podcasters grow with one another, and then obviously going on to monetize. I'm sorry, I just kicked into sales mode. What was the original question on that one?
No worries, man. I mean, when it comes to doing the campaign, what made you actually want to decide to do that? Because I think Reg CF
Right.
and like doing an equity crowdfunding is so new, right? And a lot of people are very skeptical of it. Like, why go that route versus focusing more on the traditional raise?
Yeah. Sorry, it's early. Or for me at least. The reason why we chose that route is we really wanted to, use this opportunity to kick off a new, kick off that community side of the net of what we're doing, and being able to open up a conversation with our own creators, let them kind of, what's the saying, like open the kimono a bit, and create a relationship with them where we're building the future of podcasting together. When I talk to a lot of these creators, they sort of feel like the podcasting market has blown up and left a lot of them behind, and they're not really a part of that conversation. The bigger companies, aren't really talking to the smaller podcasters and listening to them and helping them, or really podcasters of any size, and helping them, build the future that we all want to see. And so being able to launch the crowdfund and get our own creators bought into the platform, and then have sort of a vested interest in giving us great feedback, giving us great promotion, giving us great connections, and just building this community around what we're all trying to build together, has been great. And doing a crowdfund is a really amazing way to, kickstart that relationship and then to continue it on.
Out of curiosity, what were you doing before you founded Zencastr?
Before I founded Zencastr, I was actually working on a different startup. It was a company called Soundkeep. We were trying to build a place for electronic musicians to create music together and collaborate online.
Got it.
That didn't work out. Music startups are, notoriously very difficult, and I was pretty fresh and didn't realize just how difficult that was going to be. But while I was pitching that, someone said, I don't know about that, but podcasters have this problem. Maybe you could help there. And that's what sort of led into where we are now.
And talk to me a little bit about the growth, because I have noticed, you guys obviously use your platform, right? You guys have been kicking it in high gear and kind of like a lot of cool functionality. What has the growth been like recently when it comes to Zencastr?
What's happening this week is we're actually launching basically a wide release of our monetization dashboard, which means podcasters of any size can come to Zencastr and they can opt in and apply to be part of the creator network, which means they get access to affiliate deals, programmatic deals, and then direct to brand deals as well to help them grow and to help them monetize. And so the growth behind that, we just launched it I think we still haven't really even announced it. We're going to be working on the email stuff today. Already got 5,000 signups to, link their podcast, import it into Zencastr, and have us start helping them sell their inventory. And we expect that to, grow even greater as we actually send out the emails and let people know. Right now, you just have to click on a few links on the site to dig into the place to do it. So that's where we're most excited. We're bringing on brands like affiliate deals with Zencastr, also a company named BlendJet. They do $100 million in revenue every year. We've got affiliate programs where you can just come in and start. They sell really cool portable chargeable blenders you can take wherever you go and have a meal on the go. They have a really awesome affiliate kickback structure that's really awesome for smaller podcasters, because a small podcaster is not going to make if they only have a few hundred monthly downloads, doing a CPM based deal for for a brand is really not going to bring in that much money. But if you've got an affiliate program where you can get $7, $8, $10 kickback for every blender or whatever it is you sell. Now, even as a small podcaster, you're making money that can make a real difference for what we're doing. And we're seeing a strong reaction to that. People want to jump in and start making money.
Tell me the story of when you really knew you were onto something with Zencastr.
There's always sort of different stages of product market fit and traction, but I would say the earliest moment that I knew I was maybe onto something was when I very first launched like the open beta, which probably should have been called an alpha because it was, it barely kind of worked at that time. And this is like, 7 or 8 years ago. And when, it was pretty difficult at the time to do these remote recordings, keep everything in sync, keep the tracks together. And what I noticed is that I'd built stuff before that had problems and it didn't matter and nobody cared. In this case, we were getting floods of people angry and upset about, hey, this didn't work or whatever. And that's a weird way to say, like, that's a weird way to find validation. But that was sort of one of the first moments I was like, wow, they actually are at least giving me feedback. Whereas before stuff I'd try, it was just crickets.
And at what point did you really make the leap in going full time on the company?
So it was a passion project. I worked on it. I was doing contracting for other companies and startups, kind of half to 3/4 time. And that was fine, but it just took forever to actually get it built. So I worked on it, a solo project without charging anybody for almost maybe it's like, I don't know, between 1.5 years and 2 years. And after a while, I was just like, I gotta focus on this. I knew a lot of people were using it. We had thousands of people recording, but I didn't know exactly if they would pay or how much. And but eventually, I was like, I just gotta figure this out. So, quit my jobs, ran up a bunch of credit card bills, cranked really hard to get the paid plans launched, and then when we did launch them, this was, I want to say, like November of 2017-ish. It was amazing because I, really didn't know what was going to happen. And then in that first month after launching the paid plans, we did some, between, I was like 13 to 15K in MRR in the first month. And then just kind of grew from there organically.
That's so exciting. And I think that's also just a huge testament to the fact that you're building something that people want, right? And that helps their lives. And that's kind of like the biggest testament is that people are willing to pay, right, for it. I was looking through the campaign. I know you also have a CPO, right? Someone who also helps you. And I'm sure you have a lot of, big team as well. Talk to me a little bit about like finding partners along the way. How have you been able to come into the right management team and have people that you work with that are also passionate about this?
That's a tough one because as soon as you start finding success, everybody under this, well, not everybody, but you get a lot of people emailing you and saying, hey, you need help. Let me help you. I want half and all that stuff. And, or some sort of deal. And some of those may have been good deals. Some of them maybe not, but I think the bigger problem was I didn't know these people most of the time. I didn't, therefore I didn't trust them, and I didn't really have a great way to, get to know. It just wasn't I just didn't know how to like get over that hump while being so busy in the business as well.
Yeah.
And so it didn't really make sense and come to something that I think really fit until I'd been keeping in contact with my buddy, Adrian Lopez. He was one of my friends from my first startup ever. We met in when I lived in Santa Monica, working at a company called Mahalo. And we just became really good friends back then and had no idea we were going to be working together again, but always stayed in touch. And he stayed in LA, went to startup after startup. He became the first engineer and part of the founding team of a company called Flipagram. They became the fastest growing app in the App Store ever. They got bought by ByteDance and then turned into what became TikTok. And so he just had a really amazing front row seat to like how you scale up a user generated content business and, turn it into something amazing. And so as we kept in touch and I was sharing with him what I was doing and what was shaping up at Zencastr, and he was kind of sharing with his experience, it just felt like a natural fit for once instead of, be the opposite of that with all the other experiences. And because we had that rapport, we were friends, we trust each other, care about each other. it just seemed like, hey, let's have some fun. Let's build this together. And that's been an amazing experience. And we've been, cranking on it ever since.
Yeah, I think that's, in the one way it's kind of serendipitous, but it's also like the fact that you're just keeping in touch with people who matter in your life, right? And seeing them do such cool stuff. You never imagine like how different people could get together, right? In that way. But
I think that's one of the most like critical things about, what people call networking. I remember when I was in LA, there was all these people got to be networking, and you got to be like getting in touch with this investor or this big shot here and this big shot there.
Pass out the business cards.
Yeah, and I would I'm not that kind of schmoozy of a guy. But I do like to hang out at parties and stuff. And so I just met all the people that were like me hanging around, that weren't like, people you had to network with. But they become that, as we all grow up and go our separate ways. If you just stay in touch with, the people. And I think, expose, I did have the good fortune of being in a city like Santa Monica, LA, that just has a lot going on, a lot of people doing cool stuff, a lot of people with ambition. And so you stay in touch with those kinds of people, and you're going to have great connections.
If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist, fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. So you've basically been working on this product and you get it to a certain point. It's getting tons and tons of users and you're beginning to scale. You're beginning to get revenue in the door. You're getting interest, right? So you then eventually go live with this WeFunder campaign. One of the questions I have for you is, for people that are thinking about maybe doing this process, is there anything that you learned along the way when it comes to regulation crowdfunding or equity crowdfunding that you feel like would be useful to other people?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things is if you have a large audience and a wide reach, and that could be on social or newsletters or user base or whatever. But one of the biggest keys to our success so far with the crowdfund is we just we've got hundreds of thousands of registered emails with Zencastr, people who've tried us in the past, people who still use us, still love us and know who we are and have that sort of a relationship of trust on some level with these guys. And when you can let them know, have a large audience and also something that resonates with them, I think is a real key factor to having good breakout success on a crowdfund. I would also say, that doesn't make it easy. that just makes it, just gives you a really great foundation. Still takes a lot of work. I mean, it's something that, you kind of have to be almost daily thinking about, what's the next stage? What's the next, who are the next people that are coming in? How do we foster the investors who have already come in? The big goal is to, not only get investors, but to mobilize those investors to then, kind of multiply and compound your voice out to their networks as well. And so having a good strategy for how and why your audience will do that, I think is another key element that we're starting to understand.
Looking at some of what people say, like we have people here like Julian who's saying they invested because they use Zencastr and they launched their podcast 2 years ago and they're happy with your service. Other people, this person, Daquan Watson, he's been a weekly user of Zencastr for years, right? And he likes different versions of the functionality you're coming out with on the sites. Other people that looks like passionate about podcasting. A lot of people who use the product, right? One of the things I was kind of curious about is getting your take, right, on the podcasting industry. So you've built something that people love. Where do you feel like the industry itself is going from here when it comes to podcasting?
I mean, just broadly, if you look at some of the latest market reports, podcasting is in like a 32% compound annual growth trend right now. It's projected to be about $150 billion market by 2030. So the market itself is really strong, really growing really strongly. I would say some of the factors in, drilling down a bit, one of the more interesting things from our perspective is that, people, the creator economy, influencer economy is a big thing right now. And I think podcasting is now, people are starting to realize that podcasters are influencers. And instead of podcasting just sort of being this weird thing on the side of what's happening on the rest of social media. I think, and also seeing that there's a huge amount of value in all of these podcasts that are just have all this niche content that attracts really engaged listeners. And so brands and, just basically every large company out there has now launched a podcasting initiative, and most brands that we're talking to are either in the podcasting space or realize that they should or want to be in the podcasting space because they know this is a segment that's only growing stronger and they want to be at the forefront of it. So that's exciting for us. I think that's exciting for podcast creators. I think they're starting to get the the reputation of kind of how valuable they are, then they deserve that. Mm-hmm. And, catching up with other mediums. Podcasting is it's old, but it's immature compared to most other formats and mediums on the web. Like there's, historically there hasn't been an easy place to take your content that and with a place like YouTube that can algorithmically find your audience for you and then flip a button and now you're monetizing. And that's what we're trying to change. And it's happening now, which is exciting.
It's oddly ancient, and also analytics, right, are a huge issue. And I think for a lot of beginning creators, learning how to monetize is so hard, right? So I think there's a huge gap with that. And I can see it growing, just continuing into the future. It's really replaced radio, if we're being honest, right? A lot of more niche shows.
That's another trend that I just read about, was that there was this work from home thing during COVID. Everybody started listening to podcasts instead of radio because they don't have a commute anymore. And then now that people are commuting again, they're bringing their podcasts with them instead of the radio. And so just another step in kind of, eating away at the global radio market.
I totally agree with you. So when it comes to the campaign, one other question I had for you on the equity crowdfunding front is, okay, so you basically gear up, you launch this campaign, you have a strategy. One is making sure you have an audience of some kind that you can announce to. If people can sample the product or the service, it's obviously much better to do. Do you have any tactics that you feel like worked well for you when it comes to the launching the campaign?
Sorry, to make sure I understand the question. Do you mean the crowdfunding campaign or just?
Yes.
Just get onboarding as okay. I think tactics. We're still learning. What works and what doesn't. I think it's sort of you got to go play by play and see how your audience is responding. But I think part of it is, one of the things that we're doing actually right now, I talked about sort of motivating your investors as we launched, and we're doing our first live stream this week, what's called the Zencastr Inner Circle, which is a opt-in private group of our investors who want to be more involved, want to be more helpful. And we're doing a live stream this week to just kind of tell them, hey, here's the strategy, here's what we're doing, here's the upcoming, stuff here's the upcoming announcements that we're working towards, and here's how you can help. And we'll, let you know, when we make this announcement, we're going to do all these posts, and we'd love for you to go and reshare this one, or go and send this out to your network, or whatever ask it may be. You get creative with it. But I think when people, a lot of the time, I think, especially in crowdfunding, it's a totally different dynamic than, normal VC investing. And a lot of times I think they're excited about what you're doing. They want to be involved. They want to be along for the ride. And so that, I think, for a lot of them equates to more than just letting them put in money in, right? They want to have a relationship with the company. And so for creating a venue and a way for that to happen and fostering that, I think goes a long way.
Yeah, I think making the feeling like you're making an impact and a part of a community is huge, right? And especially when you're using your service, it almost feels like you're investing into a celebrity company. It's really freaking cool, right? Because you're almost owning a small piece of something that you use on a very frequent basis, So that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean that's I sure hope that's how people feel.
I mean, looking through also the reasons why people invest, I think a lot of people feel that way, right? that are checking out your campaign. One other thought I had, or one other question I had for you, kind of on the entrepreneur front, is you've been doing really well and you're growing and the industry itself is growing, right? And you're beginning to get investors as well when it comes to this campaign. For you as an entrepreneur, what do you feel like is one lesson that you've learned that you could pass on to the community that you think has been beneficial, or maybe even a difficult lesson that you've had to learn? We've talked a little bit about like partners. We've talked a bit about launching. Do you feel like there are any other lessons you want to pass on for other entrepreneurs in the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I've just personally, as an engineer who created a company that historically was just grew really well organically with product-led growth. We, for a long time, we didn't really strengthen our marketing muscles. And that worked for a while until, until you get a lot of competition, until the market heats up. And then at that point, a lot of it is a marketing game, to certain feature sets, our feature sets are always on their way to becoming commoditized at some point. And so it's all about, I think, staying in the mind share and having a good marketing strategy and focusing on that. And that's more talking to myself. For a lot of entrepreneurs, they're natural marketers. For me, coming from being an engineer to a founder and all of this, it's been something that I've had to actually really proactively pay attention to and get ahead of. And so if you're in my shoes, just get over it. You're going to have to become good at marketing, figure it out now instead of putting it off later, and you'll be better off for it.
Yeah. I'll also add to that, assessing what you're good at, right? And like where your gap is maybe, right? So for you, it sounds like engineering comes very easy to you, right? And maybe for other people, it's the opposite, right?
I mean, if I was like a superstar 10x engineer, I could probably stay on the engineering team and make a lot of contributions. But I would like to think I'm talented, but we've got way more talented guys on the engineering team now. And I found I was just kind of getting in the way, especially since I couldn't put my full focus there. Tickets were taking too long.
That's like a really humbling moment too, right? Is like you move from individual contributor to like enabling a team to outperform you.
Yeah, it was, because that was a lot of what my self image and ego was wrapped around, was being this, trying to be a great engineer. And I enjoyed it too. I enjoy the problem solving aspect of it. But in the end, there's people that are way more focused and talented. And I had to figure out, how do I reposition myself in this company? So we can scale it up and we can actually delegate properly and have a team that can scale up, and B, just, find a place for myself that, like you said, where I'm still happy, where I still enjoy the day to day. Cause if you just want to shoot yourself every morning, you're not going to make too much progress. So I do. The lucky thing is, a lot of what I can do as marketing as a podcast company is go and be on podcasts and talk to podcasters, which I love. Podcasters are really fun people, all really ambitious, all have big goals in mind. And it's, they're entrepreneurs. And so I can connect with most podcasters on that level. We're all trying to build value, build something that people love.
So I just have two more questions for you. So one is, I feel like kind of your story up until this point is kind of like almost like the epitome of, the American success story, which is you come from an idea, you pivot, you make something from nothing, you're growing that sucker, right? You're able to crank that up, and now you're getting investors and it's going to become really big. Where does this story end? Like, are you someday looking to be acquired? Do you think you're going to do an IPO? What are your thoughts in the future with this?
Yeah, I mean, we've had acquisition offers in the past that we haven't taken. Not that we wouldn't moving forward. I think it's just the right offer at the right time. Part of it is just like, if I there's so much more left to do in the podcasting, and we're in a really great position to help there. So if I think about like, let's cash out and move on to something else, like, what would I do? Would I find a more hot market with more fun people to work with more awesome creators? Probably not. Like, I don't know where that would be. And so, but I think in the end, the right offer at the right time is probably where our destiny lies, but we still got a lot to build.
Got it. Awesome. So for people that are interested in learning more, where can they go to check out your campaign and learn more about Zencastr?
Yeah, our campaign is live at wefunder.com/Zencastr. You can also contact us. We're at Zencastr on Twitter. And then obviously Zencastr.com. You can come sign up. We make it really easy to create a podcast from start to finish. We help you record, distribute, promote, and also have monetization and growth options. So come check us out if you're looking to start a podcast.
Great. And my final question for you is, and we can end on this note, you can either end with a quote that you like, you can end with some advice that a mentor has given you, you could end with a final tip, or just a word of encouragement to other people out there when it comes to their projects, their podcasts, their entrepreneurial endeavors.
Ooh, a tip or a quote? Or just some words of advice. I might be taking too long here. I think, this is a little bit, you may hear this advice a lot, but I still think it's true. It rings true for podcasts. It rings true for starting a business. You never know what you don't know until you get started. And I think I fell into this trap. A lot of other people have fallen into this trap of trying to read all the books, trying to get everything sorted out, everything planned, make sure it's going to be perfect and that you're not going to fail before you even start trying. And then you realize you don't, by that time you've wasted a lot of time not learning what you'd learn if you just jumped in. So if you're thinking about starting a company, if you're thinking about crowdfunding or starting a podcast, you just got to jump in and, figure out how this is going to work and, learn as you go. Start prepared and with a good foundation, but you're going to learn the most in the process as opposed to looking on from the outside in.
Love it. Awesome, man. Josh, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing all those great tips. I'll be sure to link up everything in the show notes and can't wait to see how your campaign does in the next couple of weeks here.
Awesome. Thank you, Salvador. Thank you for having me. Really awesome to be on the podcast and hope to stay in touch.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman, bringing you education, high quality tactics, teaching tools, strategies every single week when it comes to crowdfunding. And hopefully with this podcast episode, you took away a couple of nuggets of gold when it comes to being able to run an effective equity crowdfunding campaign. So this to me is one of the most exciting times to be alive. It's one of the easiest times as well to raise investment capital for a startup company, for a business, trying to grow, you're trying to scale, you're trying to even just get off the ground. This is one of the best times to actually use equity crowdfunding to your advantage. So I'm going to give you a link in just a second, but for those of you that are in the audience, I think that there's this really interesting analogy that I want to share with you. And I think that sometimes in life, there are challenges that come up that all of a sudden this challenge comes up and you're like, I don't know if I want to do this whole crowdfunding thing. I don't know if I want to go put in all that work, right? Do I really want to go big? Do I want people to know my name, my brand? It's kind of scary and also exciting at the same time. And for some of you, you're also going through maybe challenging times in your life. And it's been a long journey for you to come here. And the way that I like to think about this is there's this analogy, there's this story of the buffaloes and the cows. Now, I know it's crazy, right? Listen to me, because this story is really going to illuminate, I think, a lot of the ways in which we operate. So first of all, whenever you have a beautiful savanna, you got some buffaloes, you got some cows, and all of a sudden you see this massive storm clouds on the horizon. And the storm clouds are coming closer and coming closer. And both the buffaloes and the cows, they see this storm, which is descending onto the plains. And they have two different decisions. The buffaloes decide to run straight into the storm. Okay, they're running straight into that sucker. And the cows, they decide to run directly away from it. Now, they're both trying to accomplish the same thing. The cows are trying to get away from the storm, and the buffaloes, if you actually think about it, are trying to as well get through the storm. So the cows, the storm is coming down, it's barreling down, you got all the wind, and you got the rain, and you got the hail, and you got the lightning, all that stuff, and it's scary and really terrifying, and the cows are running away from that storm, and they're running and running and running, but what ends up happening is the storm keeps coming, right? The storm keeps following them. And eventually the storm is going to overtake them, right? And they're going to be through crazy mayhem being inside that storm. But eventually then obviously the storm is going to continue on, right? Now the cows, that took a long time because they're running away from that storm. They're running far. They're panting. They're so tired by the end of it. And eventually the storm just kind of goes over, right? And it was a little bit scary at first, but eventually that happens. The buffaloes, ironically, have a very interesting way of dealing with this. So again, they go straight into the storm. They see those storm clouds on the horizon. They see the wind. They see the water. They see all that happening, that mayhem, and they go straight into the storm. Now, why do they do that, right? Why couldn't they just run away? Well, they go straight into the storm. They barrel through it. And for a little bit, it is super scary. There's crazy stuff happening all around them, really strong winds, right? They're so scared, but they just keep going and going and going. And ironically, because they go straight into the storm, it actually doesn't take very long. And all of a sudden, the storm blows over. And they have beautiful green, the fruits of the storm, right? Which is being able to have some water, being able to munch on maybe some grass, right? Having the great, incredible sun, which is then coming down after this, if you've gone through the storm, right? So they can actually then enjoy what's on the other side of it for a little bit sooner than the buffaloes. So what is that analogy, right? That's kind of like a little bit of an offbeat analogy. What I think it means is actually that when you're going through something that's difficult or a challenging process, in some ways, our natural reaction is like the cows. We kind of want to just drag on and hope that's going to get better and slowly make progress. And it ends up dragging out. And maybe you resonate with this, the fact that you had an idea and it's been years until you actually launched this product, until you actually launched this company. And it's been dragging on and dragging on and dragging on because you are scared of the unknown and scared of uncertainty and scared of the things that you aren't sure of. Whereas other people just embrace it and directly go straightly towards their goal. And it's very challenging for maybe a couple of months, and it's a lot of work, but they compress it all into one short time span and they get through it, and then they see the results. So you can decide to be either person. You can decide to be the buffalo or the cows, and both of them will probably eventually get you through those challenges, get you through that storm. But one is a much straighter path to success. If you feel like you're ready to finally lean into that storm to get the fruits on the other side, if you're actually ready to do that, go and check out the link I'm about to mention at crowdcrux.com/equity course, because that link will help you step by step with launching an equity crowdfunding campaign at crowdcrux.com/equity course or crowdcrux.com/equity course. In addition, if you feel like you're really ready to light a fire underneath this, maybe this portion of your life, whether it's with business coaching or crowdfunding coaching, and you're really ready to sink your teeth into this, to double down and to take this seriously, you got to book a one-on-one intensive coaching call with me. It's one of the best investments which you can make, and it will set you up for success in the long run, build a strong foundation, and we can talk about everything going into your campaign. If you want to book a call, you can go to crowdcrux.com/coaching. That link is crowdcrux.com/coaching, crowdcrux.com/coaching. We'll take you there. Give me a little bit of information. Tell me what you're trying to do and accomplish. We can get that call scheduled ASAP. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much, man, for tuning in. Give me a positive rating and review on iTunes if you are listening to this there. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.